It's beyond time for this conversation. It's beyond time for pointing fingers and defending an ideal. It's beyond time for hate. And it's time for unity. People see something happen and they want to know why. And the first step to satisfaction is blame. Now, blame is several things. It's an excellent defense mechanism. It's a tool when we're in attack mode. It's easy, and unfortunately, it's fast. Now, gamers and video games really aren't new to this concept of blame. They aren't new to the fact that when horrific, cowardice acts of violence occur, there will be those who point the finger at violence in video games. This has been occurring since video games have been around. Back in the 1970s, the arcade game Death Race drew public attention for allowing players to run over enemies. And this was followed up by the early 1990s when a video game named Mortal Kombat got the attention of Democratic Senators Joseph Lieberman and Herbert Kohl. This led them to call a hearing of video game violence, and the industry responded by creating the video games rating system as we know it today, the ESRB. Now, I remember my parents talking about this day specifically because they were saying that video games shouldn't need ratings because they were just kids' toys. Where this took a specific critical moment was in 1999 with the horrific murders at Columbine. It was reported that these murderers also happened to play the game Doom. This was a very critical turning point for the industry and the problem with video games. Newt Gingrich said at the time that Hollywood and computerized games have undermined our core values for civility. President Bill Clinton asked the federal government to look into whether media companies were marketing violent content to young people. This was then followed up by his wife, Senator Hillary Clinton, who campaigned against violence in video games and sponsored a bill that would have penalized the sale of adult video games to minors. This never ended up passing, but similar efforts were made at the state level, and the Supreme Court ruled in 2011 that California could not ban the sale of violent video games to children. Justice Anton Scalia said at the time that video games deserve First Amendment protection. He also cast doubt on the idea that violence in games could cause real-world acts of aggression. He wrote that psychological studies purported to show a connection between the exposure to violent games and the harmful effects on children, but they do not prove that such exposure causes minors to actually act aggressively, and any demonstrated effects are both small and indistinguishable from effects produced by other media. However, this ruling did not quell the debate, and in 2012, after the Sandy Hook tragedy, Senator Lieberman said that young men who commit mass shootings have an almost hypnotic involvement with some form of violence in our entertainment culture, particularly violent video games. I think it's past time to stop blaming video games and honestly start blaming ourselves. Psychologists have argued back and forth on if there is a link between violent video games and those acting on it, and according to the book Mortal Kombat, Why the War on Video Games is Wrong by Dr. Patrick Markey and Dr. Christopher Ferguson, they break down several of these arguments. That, and along with the rise of gamers all over the world, and if we're to take Microsoft's latest numbers of over 2 billion gamers, the rise in gaming hasn't been met with a rise of violence. But then here's the rub. That's not to say there aren't issues. When you look at things like Gamergate and other issues plaguing the video game industry as a whole, we aren't to blame, but we're not blameless either. Good raid teams don't point fingers at their teammates, but rather at themselves. Asking ourselves what we could do better next time, how we could perform better overall, that's how we continue to make an impact. Have you told someone today that you love them, that they're important? If not, I recommend that you do when you have the opportunity. It's past time we stop pointing fingers, and it's past time that we start coming together and being better humans, better gamers, and just better to each and every one of us. The road isn't easy, and it's never been easy. It's always been my personal philosophy that the only thing I can control in this life is myself. So today I ask myself, what can I do better to help my team out? And I invite you to do the same. The science of blaming video games is that emotional, fast response. But we shouldn't defend video games just because we are gamers. It doesn't really get us anywhere. And you know how I know this? I know this because here we are again, and again, and again. I wish I had the answer and the solution, the simple thing that people could understand and rally behind. But I honestly think that even if I did, in a week or two, it'd be forgotten for some other thing. Because there isn't an easy solution. Sure, it's easy to say in a comment. Sure, it's easy to tweet. Oh, just do this. But I think it's more complex than that. And that's unfortunate. I love each and every one of you. I want you to know that. Regardless of how you feel about me, this video, the words that I write, and the things that I say and believe, I hope that tomorrow is a better day. I think it's past time. I think it's been past time. But I don't think it's hopeless either.